Here we go. The documentary is banned for being too disturbed.
Can a documentary be so real, so terrifying that it gets banned? Well, many documentary films have been banned for that exact reason. But it makes you wonder, what's in those documentaries that makes them too disturbing to watch? These are documentaries banned for being too disturbing, ranked from the least shocking to the most shocking. I'm Visual Venture, and you are awesome. Mondo Cane. When Mondo Cane came out, it was called the world's first shockumentary, and that wasn't a compliment. A shockumentary is a documentary meant to shock and disgust its audience. The more disgusted the audience is, the better the shockumentary. So the question is, what was in Mondo Cane that made it so disgusting?
Mondo Cane is a spectacle as big as the eye can see.
Mondo Cane was produced in 1962 by a team of Italian filmmakers.
1962?
Initially, they told everyone that they were making a documentary about different cultures around the world. That sounded innocent enough. However, people began to realize that this was no ordinary
Was it like the disturbing sides of cultures around the world?
documentary when they first heard the title Mondo Cane. Mondo Cane is an Italian phrase that literally translates to dog world. But it wasn't just about the dogs, it had a much darker meaning. The director titled the documentary Dog World to show that humans can be just as wild and cruel as animals. In this case, Dog World meant a harsh world where people acted like beasts, kind of like saying a dog-eat-dog world. Mondo Cane wasn't just about different cultures from around the world. It focused on the most violent and disturbing practices. It was a collection of footage displaying mankind at its most depraved and perverse. Once the documentary was ready, posters popped up all over Italy inviting people to watch it in theaters.
Hurry,
Was there
hurry,
a warning?
They're just in time, friends, to see the most sensational, the most colossal attraction ever witnessed by the human eye.
Even though the ads warned about how unsettling the movie was, people wanted to see it for themselves.
Oh, I mean, humans are curiosity creatures, of course. I mean, especially like, even though like people who are like young not be watching this stuff. I remember when I was younger, I watched some of the like. I think I stumbled upon like a dark website once, and it was like all like like cartel stuff. I just ended there, and it's just because of curiosity, not because I'm like, you know, but it was one of my biggest regrets. It's like hell no, dude. And in general, humans are just curious, right? Let's be honest. Like people are like, what? What is this? Everyone's like, thinking, "Look, do not watch it." You know what? Actually, here's a perfect example. Something that nobody should have watched. The Two Girls One Cup. I remember when that video popped up on the internet, everybody was talking about it. Even though we should not be watching it, very young, people still watched it. I'm pretty sure this is probably worse, like even saying that. But yeah, it hundreds of incredible worlds where the camera has never gone before. You may never see it through, and none of it as truly sickening as this, and it's all real.
People wanted to see it for themselves.
The dark side of the world.
They weren't ready for what they witnessed when Mondo Cane finally aired in theaters. The film premiered in Italy on March 30th, 1962, and it was 108 minutes of nonstop shock. It showed the filmmakers traveling the world, capturing the most gruesome footage from different tribes. The documentary opened with a chilling disclaimer. All the scenes you will see in this film are true. If they are shocking, it's only because there are many shocking things in this world.
The duty of a reporter is not to make the truth seem sweeter, but to show things as they really are.
And they weren't kidding. In one scene, women were fattened up with food until they weighed over 264 pounds. Then they were offered as wives to the village dictator. There was a religious ceremony where villagers walked in a parade while holding live snakes. Another scene showed people burning money during a funeral so the deceased person could take the money into the afterlife.
Here, after hundreds of dark centuries, men discover for the first time in their lives that they have a doubt.
The film also included scenes of animals being treated badly. Mondo Cane definitely delivered on its promise. It was shocking, disgusting, and soon everyone was talking about it.
Mondo Cane. People all over the world are talking about Mondo Cane. For Mondo Cane has more in it to talk about
a documentary officially banned for watching?
But the same thing that made the documentary famous also led to its downfall. When Mondo Cane became the talk of the town, it also generated a lot of controversy. The first problem,
You know what's kind of scary now? Mondo Cane would not be bannable today. Because there's a lot of bad stuff to be seen already online. We got World Star Hip Hop, right? We got Twitter with a well, on Twitter, you literally see someone getting like beat up, jacked. There's even like a possible killing on a video caught on Twitter. It's literally Twitter is Mondo Conde 2. You know what I mean? I don't think this video, since this video, like this movie obviously super old, but I think today it would not be banned.
Critics hated it. They called it gross and uncivilized. And with very graphic scenes, it's easy to see why. But that wasn't the only issue. Soon, people started to wonder if everything in the documentary was actually real. There were rumors that some scenes were staged or edited to make things look worse than they really were. The filmmakers were also accused of exploiting the tribes they filmed. Critics said they were only showing this footage to make money without caring about the cultures they were showing. And as more people watched it, the backlash got stronger. Many countries banned the documentary. For instance, Mondo Cane was banned in the UK because some scenes showed animals being treated inappropriately. The filmmakers defended their work, saying that they were just showing the world as it really is. Now, more than 60 years later, Mondo Cane is still one of the most disturbing documentaries ever made, and it's still banned in many places to this day. This audience review on Rotten Tomatoes says it best. This is still the quintessential shockumentary. If you have a strong stomach, watch this flick, but if you have any hesitation, hold back. Mondo Cane was so strange that people called it crazy, but this next documentary actually featured people who were diagnosed as crazy. Mondo Cane and these documentaries to come show us an unsettling view of the world. When the world feels overwhelming, something as simple as enjoying a meal without the stress of cooking can make all the difference. Be honest, guys, I don't cook. I mean, I guess if you count cereal, but for actual meals, Factor is a lifesaver. Factor delivers chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals right to your door. You can choose from over 35 different meals per week with options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, and more. Something that I think is really cool is that they now offer smoothies.
I actually tried Factor. It's actually really good, but you gotta cook it in an oven, not on like microwave or anything like that. Also, guys, if I had money, I would totally do Factor instead of cooking every week.
And juices. In my opinion, smoothies are the quickest way to get a lot of nutrients in your body with the least amount of effort. And I am all about the least amount of effort. Creating these videos for you guys is practically a job I do almost every waking hour, 7 days a week. So warming up a well-balanced, nutritious meal to be ready in 2 minutes comes in clutch. And with Christmas around the corner, it makes a great Christmas present, especially to your friends and family who are too busy to cook. Make sure you guys click my link below to get 50% off and free shipping on your first Factor box, and 20% off your next month of orders with my discount code VISUAL50. Big thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video. Titty Cut Follies. Imagine spending 29 days inside a mental hospital in the 60s filming everything you see. That's what happened in 1966 when the crew of Titty Cut Follies recorded 80 hours of raw footage showing what happens inside a mental hospital. But before the public could see what they filmed, the documentary was banned. There were powerful men who tried so hard to keep this documentary buried. But why? The story of Titty Cut Follies started in 1966 when Frederick Wiseman made a huge decision. He was going to quit his job as a lawyer and become a filmmaker. Wiseman wanted his first project to be a documentary, but he chose a really weird place to film, the Bridgewater State Hospital for the Criminally Insane in Massachusetts. Although it had never been done before, Wiseman somehow convinced the head of the mental hospital to allow him to film there. But there was one condition: the camera crew would have to be followed by hospital staff at all times during filming. They agreed and the filming began, but if the filmmakers knew the depravity waiting inside the hospital, they never would have gone in.
Next, let's go. Quincy.
Bridgewater wasn't just any hospital. It held patients who committed crimes but also had serious mental illnesses, making it hard for them to understand right from wrong. Instead of going to regular prisons, they were sent to places like Bridgewater to get treatment. This meant the inmates were dangerous criminals. But when the camera started rolling, the crew was shocked at how helpless these so-called dangerous criminals really were. Bridgewater Hospital was run more like a prison than a hospital. Instead of being treated, the inmates were bullied, humiliated, humiliated and neglected by the staff. The inmates were also left in unhygienic conditions. It was clear that the staff had no
so it was corruption. That's why they want to get those the video out. Okay.
Sympathy for them. One of the most haunting scenes in the documentary showed an inmate being force-fed while a guard made fun of him. Wiseman tried to stay professional even though what he saw deeply disturbed him. The way the patients were treated was wrong, but the staff didn't seem to care that the camera was catching.
I mean, if you said something, they would have stopped filming and he would not bring out the video out at that time before they try to ban it, pretty much.
All of it.
With the help of cameraman John Marshall, the two-man team recorded interviews between patients and staff, daily rituals such as the cleaning of patients' rooms, and interactions between the inmates.
The crew spent 29 days filming the horrors inside Bridgewater and then spent a year editing the footage into an 84-minute film. The documentary didn't have any narration, interviews, or explanations. It just showed what life was really like inside the hospital, leaving it up to the viewer to make sense of it. When the documentary was finally ready, Wiseman couldn't wait for people to see the truth about Bridgewater. He arranged for it to be premiered at the 1967 New York Film Festival. Everything was set to go, but then, just before the premiere, something unexpected happened. A powerful group suddenly showed up and tried to stop the documentary from being shown to the public. As the premiere date approached, rumors started spreading that Titicut Follies contained unsettling footage of the patients being mistreated. That's when the Massachusetts government realized they could be in big trouble. If people saw the horrible things happening in the film, families of the inmates might sue them. After all, it was the government's job to make sure the hospital was running properly. And so the Massachusetts governor and other top officials took the film to court to prevent it from being shown. Their official reason, they said the documentary violated the patient's privacy and dignity. They also accused Wiseman of breaking an oral contract that was supposed to give the government control over what could be shown. But the director Wiseman wasn't going to give up easily. He wanted the world to see what really happened in the hospital, and he was ready to fight for it. And remember, he was a lawyer before he became a filmmaker. This kicked off a long legal battle between one filmmaker and the Massachusetts government. Wiseman won the first victory when a New York state court allowed the documentary to be shown at the film festival. But ultimately, he was no match for the might of the Massachusetts government. In 1968, a Massachusetts judge ordered Titicut Follies to be pulled from theaters and for all copies to be destroyed, claiming once again that it violated the privacy and dignity of the patients shown in the documentary. This was the first time a movie got banned in the United States for reasons other than obscenity, immorality, or national security concerns. It wasn't until over 20 years later, in 1991, that the court finally allowed it to be released. But there was one condition. The film had to include a statement explaining that changes and improvements had been made in Bridgewater since 1966.
Of course.
The War Game.
Of course.
The War Game wasn't just a documentary, it was a warning. Made in 1965, it showed what might happen if a nuclear bomb hit the United Kingdom. The documentary wasn't just about the explosion, it was about the chaos that would follow, the hunger, the violence, and the collapse of law and order. Because a nuclear attack never hit Britain, the director Peter Watkins had to use his imagination when making the documentary. He envisioned how the government would respond, how people would react, and what the aftermath would look like after a nuclear attack. So, why would someone make a documentary like this? Most documentaries are made because the director is passionate about the topic, but this one was different. Peter Watkins, the director, didn't want to make a film about a nuclear attack. His bosses at the BBC made him do it. The BBC, or British Broadcasting Corporation, was like the official TV network of Britain. Their job was to keep people informed. In 1965, the British public was worried about what would happen if a nuclear bomb hit the United Kingdom. In response to these fears, the BBC asked filmmaker Peter Watkins to create a documentary that would explore this terrifying possibility. The BBC didn't just want to talk about what could happen, they wanted to show it. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but things didn't go as planned. Because the documentary Peter Watkins created was so terrifying, it was banned. Peter Watkins, who was only 29, was one of the best documentary filmmakers in Britain. He was so talented that people said he could make films in the same sort of way that Mozart could compose music. In other words, Peter Watkins was a genius. When the BBC ordered Watkins to make a scary documentary about a nuclear attack, he took it very seriously, maybe too seriously. He worked with scientists, experts, and government officials to make the war game as realistic as possible.
9:16 a.m. A single megaton nuclear missile overshoots Manston Airfield in Kent and airbursts, 6 miles from this position.
The documentary showed people hiding in fear, neighborhoods destroyed, and people becoming ill. There were also scenes of citizens looting shops, firestorms, and whole cities reduced to rubble. Food supplies run out and the police are armed. Even those who escaped injury go into a state of fear and shock from the things they've seen. Throughout the documentary, a narrator explains how these events could really happen if a nuclear war occurred.
December the 25th. A refugee compound in Dover, Kent, 4 months after the attack.
Watkins worked hard on the project. He used 350 actors, skilled video editing, and dramatic sound effects to create a masterpiece. When Watkins finished the war game documentary, he proudly presented it to his bosses at the BBC. He thought they'd be impressed, and maybe even reward him for doing such a great job, but the response he got was much harsher. The BBC, who asked him to make the film, refused to air it on TV. They decided to bury the documentary to make sure no one ever saw it. The official reason for this decision? They claimed the documentary was too terrifying and would cause panic among the public. In an official statement, the BBC insisted that it had reached this decision on its own and without outside pressure of any kind. Watkins was devastated, but there was nothing he could do because the BBC owned the rights to the video. Watkins was so upset that he resigned. However, people started to wonder if the BBC's reason was the whole truth. Was it really banned for being too scary, or was there more to it? Will declassified government documents later reveal the truth? After Watkins completed the documentary, he handed it over to the BBC. The BBC then invited top British government officials to watch it before it was shown on television. This turned out to be a huge mistake because the government officials hated it. The documentary showed the British government completely falling apart during a nuclear attack, unable to help citizens. It made the government look weak and unprepared. If the British public saw the movie, they would lose faith in the government's ability to protect them. The declassified documents revealed that even the Prime Minister—
Why would they do that? What? That doesn't make— Bro. Oh, here's a film of you guys looking really stupid, of society falling if a nuclear hit our where we live. Why would they? What? This is okay. That makes zero sense. Why would they do that?
Minister of Britain heard about the documentary and didn't like it. And so the government pressured the BBC to keep the documentary hidden from the entire country. Although the BBC couldn't air it on British TV, they allowed the documentary to be shown at several film festivals abroad. For 20 years, the ban on the war game stayed in place. It wasn't until 1985, about 20 years later, that the BBC finally aired it on TV. In those 2 decades, the war game became legendary. People heard it through word of mouth and wanted to see what was so terrifying about it that it couldn't be shown on television. Today, the war game has a score of 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, which just proves how amazing it is. This next documentary was so dangerous that the entire crew almost lost their lives. The Cove.
No, actually, I probably won't.
The Cove is a disturbing documentary about a hidden cove in Taiji, Japan. A cove is kind of like a small beach surrounded by rocks or cliffs. But why make a documentary about this particular cove? It's because of the awful things that happened there.
That's a dolphin's worst nightmare, right there.
Every year, fishermen drive dolphins into the secret cove. Once trapped, the dolphins are captured. The lucky ones are sold to marine parks around the world. But for the dolphins that aren't sold, a much darker fate awaits them. They're harvested for their meat, which is then sold as food. But dolphins are highly intelligent and social creatures, and many people believe they shouldn't be eaten. In fact, many organizations have banned the hunting of all dolphins. Also, the method of hunting in Taiji is considered exceptionally cruel. However, each year, the dolphin hunt continues in this cove, and thousands are captured using
wait a minute, I know
methods.
this one.
The fishermen of Taiji didn't want anyone finding out what they were doing, so they kept the cove under tight security. Armed men guarded the area, and they wouldn't hesitate to take anyone out who tried to get in. The cove was also surrounded by wire fences and keep out signs.
You'll see the signs: keep out, danger. There are fishermen walking around these hills with knives.
On many occasions, local fishermen have gotten physical with journalists who try to record what goes on in the cove. Even the local police helped hide what was going on.
These fishermen told me, they said if the world finds out what goes on here, we'll be shut down.
For decades, this cruel hunt was kept a secret from the world. That was until dolphin activist Rick O'Barry heard about it. He wanted the world to know how dolphins were being treated in Japan. But the real question was, would he risk his life to expose the truth? Rick O'Barry wasn't always a dolphin activist. In fact, he was once the guy who made dolphins popular on TV. In the 1960s, Rick trained dolphins for the TV show Flipper. He spent years teaching dolphins to perform tricks and entertain crowds. But everything changed after one of his beloved dolphins passed away. Rick realized that keeping dolphins in captivity was cruel, and he dedicated his life to freeing them. When Rick and his team of activists found out about the dolphin hunt in Taiji, they decided to make a documentary exposing the truth. But they knew it wasn't going to be easy.
Yeah,
the town Taiji in Japan is very fierce in protecting its secret.
Rick O'Barry and his team knew they couldn't just stroll in with their cameras to get footage for the documentary. They would need to act like spies in a Hollywood movie. So they came up with a plan. Rick recruited an elite force of specialist divers, surfers, and underwater cameramen and special effects creators in order to expose the cove. Rick and his team entered Japan pretending to be tourists, blending in to avoid suspicion. Once they reached the town of Taiji, they executed the toughest part of their plan.
And so we've snuck in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
We set the cameras. These are prototypes of the first hard drive cameras ever made. We set those in the cove and my team went to bed.
The divers moved through the water quickly, placing hidden cameras disguised as rocks around the cove in the middle of the night. They also set up high-tech gear like underwater microphones to capture the sound during the hunt.
Right.
And I was hanging from a rope with black paint on like a ninja. And then we had to come back the next night to retrieve them. When I was hanging from the rope, I had a camera, so I'm watching it through the lens.
The footage from the hidden cameras showed hundreds of dolphins being captured, and it was so brutal that it was hard to watch. But the footage didn't just capture the hunt. It also exposed something else too. The dolphin meat being sold in Japan was contaminated with high levels of mercury, which is dangerous. Eating meat contaminated with mercury over a long period can cause mercury poisoning, which can be fatal. When the cove was released in 2009, the graphic scenes showing dolphins being hunted made people sick. Viewers were angry and activists demanded an end to dolphin hunting. But not everyone was happy that the documentary was out.
The film has drawn criticism in Japan from protesters labeling it anti-Japanese.
The government believed the documentary hurt their reputation and gave a false impression of their culture. Unlike many Western countries, dolphin hunting wasn't illegal in Japan. Fishermen in Taiji also argued that the film was an attack on their way of life. Due to all the backlash, the documentary was unofficially banned in Japan. Whenever a screening was planned, protesters would show up and force the event to be canceled. Some politicians even threatened people trying to show it in theaters. On top of that, the company with the rights to air the documentary in Japan got sued by someone in the film. But eventually, a few theaters in Japan managed to show the documentary. Unfortunately, dolphin hunting still happens in Taiji today, but the cove shined a spotlight on the issue. The next documentary was so controversial that it angered one of the world's most ruthless dictators. Now, the creators of the film have to live in fear. The Red Chapel.
The Red
Chapel is one of those documentaries that feels more like a spy movie than a regular documentary. Released in 2009, it begins with a wild idea. A team of Danish filmmakers wanted to travel to North Korea to make a documentary about life under a dictatorship. If you know anything about North Korea, you'll realize how dangerous that idea was. North Korea is one of the most oppressive places in the world. The government controls every aspect of people's lives. Basic freedoms like the right to speak your mind or practice religion are heavily restricted. In North Korea,
I mean, like, I don't blame them how like brainwashed a lot of these people are who see these people as gods, you know, like the dictators and all that, or like the dictator's family. They could easily take over them, pretty much, technically. If everybody decided, you know what, we don't want this anymore. If the whole North Korea plays were like, we don't want this balance to run our land anymore, they could do that. But obviously they can't, because they got brainwashed, just seeing them as gods, as good people, etc. Obviously it's not easy as it sounds too, as well, let's be honest. But I remember like how restricted they are. I remember I seen an article, and I'm not trying to be funny here, but I remember seeing an article about North Korea soldiers finally got like access to the internet, and then the first thing they saw was like porn, and now they're like addicted to porn. I was like, what?
People have been arrested for seemingly ordinary things like having the wrong hairstyle, watching foreign TV shows, and wearing jeans. Things are so strict that even falling asleep when the dictator is making a speech can lead to a death sentence. North Korea seemed like the perfect place to make a documentary about dictatorship. But there was one big problem. They didn't allow visitors. To enter the country, you needed special permission from the government, and there was no way they'd let anyone in to come and film a documentary on dictatorship. The filmmakers knew they couldn't tell the truth, so they lied. They pretended to be part of a cultural exchange program, claiming that they were bringing a fun comedy show to entertain the North Korean people. They also expressed how much they admired the North Korean dictator.
Two Danish Korean comedians, and they have come here to give pleasure to your people and pay tribute to your powerful and wonderful society.
Surprisingly, the North Korean government let them in. But from the moment they arrived, it was clear things wouldn't go as planned. The North Korean government, suspicious of foreigners, kept a close eye on the group and controlled their every move. They were assigned a handler named Mrs. Pak, who made sure they only saw what the government wanted them to see. And the most difficult part was that they had to perform an actual comedy show.
Oh my god.
A cat.
Push or with.
In English you can say pussycat or cat. It's you know, a cat. Meow.
Meow, pushy.
But they also had to film a documentary. So they told the government handler that they were recording their trip to show the world how great North Korea was. But in reality, they planned to use their footage to expose how tough life was in that country. This was incredibly risky. If the government discovered their real plan, the filmmakers could be thrown in prison or worse. They performed their comedy act, taking every chance to film situations that revealed the harsh reality of life in North Korea. However, as they kept filming, they started to wonder if they were doing the right thing. They realized they were putting North Korean citizens in danger just by talking to them, because if anyone was caught saying something bad about the government, they could face severe punishment. After finishing their comedy performances, they left North Korea and turned their footage into the documentary The Red Chapel. It was shown at multiple film festivals and got a lot of praise. But obviously, not everyone was happy about it. The Red Chapel was banned in North Korea for mocking the regime. North Korean officials accused the director of lying to get into their country and even called him an animal. Even though the Red Chapel is still banned in North Korea, it won multiple awards around the world. The topic of our next documentary is something—
Well, yeah, they literally played North Korea. They made them look like stupid idiots. Right? And man, this gotta be, I'm not gonna lie, guys, multiple documentaries I gotta watch. Not the crazy ones, but like this one, I'm very curious about the whole documentary and how they literally played North Korea. No wonder they're always suspicious about people.
Something that affects everyone, but the way it was filmed was so graphic that people were too afraid to watch it. The act of seeing with one's own eyes. Have you ever wondered what happens to your physical body when you pass away? This documentary tried to answer that question, but ended up creating one of the most disturbing documentaries ever made.
I'm not watching
Entitled The Act of Seeing with One's Own Eyes, the documentary takes viewers to a place most would never dare to go, a morgue. And the camera keeps filming as real autopsies are performed on real bodies. So why would someone make a documentary showing real autopsies? It starts to make sense once you learn more about the guy who made it. The director, Stan Brakhage, wasn't your average filmmaker. He was an experimental filmmaker known for breaking the rules. Stan loved to talk about deep topics that pushed people out of their comfort zones. In 1971, Stan decided to make a documentary about autopsies because he believed people needed to face the harsh reality that everyone one day would pass away. The title, The Act of Seeing with One's Own Eyes, is a literal translation of the term autopsy. The word autopsy is derived from the Greek autopsy, autopsia, meaning to see for oneself. But how did he get permission to film a morgue? Today, this would be almost impossible, but in 1971, when Stan made the film, things were different. He somehow convinced a morgue in Pittsburgh to let him film the autopsies. However, Stan had to promise not to show the faces of the deceased. In the documentary, Brackett shows morgue workers performing autopsies. There's no music, no narration, no explanation, just raw graphic footage of what really happens. Because the footage was so graphic, the documentary couldn't be shown to the general public. Censorship boards thought it was too disturbing and would upset the audience. Without narration or educational content, people couldn't really see it as a typical documentary. Maybe if it had some explanations or scientific information, it would have been considered educational. Since most theaters refused to show it, the act of seeing with one's own eyes was screened mostly at film festivals and private events. Over time, it became known as one of the most unsettling documentaries ever made. Calling this next documentary horrifying doesn't do it justice. It's one of the worst things ever caught on film. Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh no.
Imagine a documentary so shocking that the director was arrested for making it. And the crazy part, he was arrested because people thought he ended someone's life live on camera. The documentary at the center of all this drama was called Cannibal Holocaust. So why did the director create something so controversial? It all started back in 1979 when an American film crew set out to make a documentary about the tribes living deep in the Amazon rainforest. But there was something especially dangerous about the tribe they wanted to investigate. They were cannibals. It wasn't the smartest idea to wander into a forest looking for a tribe known for eating people, but that's exactly what these filmmakers did. The team, made up of a director, a writer, and two cameramen, traveled from the US and began their journey through the thick Amazon rainforest. It didn't end well. Those 4 documentary filmmakers were never heard from again. Most people assumed the worst, that they were captured and eaten by the tribe they went to film. But others believed the filmmakers might still be alive, lost somewhere in the jungle.
4 Americans plunge into the savagery of the Amazon jungle to film a documentary. They never come back. Are they still alive? If so, where are they?
Months later, an American professor formed a rescue team to track down the missing filmmakers in the Amazon forest. But any hope of finding them alive vanished when the rescue team found the skeletal remains of the filmmakers with their film reels in the forest. The rescue team brought the reels back to America and watched the footage, but nothing could prepare them for what they saw. The tapes revealed in gruesome detail how the filmmakers were taken out by the tribes they went to study. Yet after seeing this horrifying footage, the team made a bizarre decision. They decided to release the film to the public. Cannibal Holocaust didn't hold back. It shocked audiences with its graphic scenes showing the film.
I mean, one thing that was really dumb. It's like that one guy who went to spread religion to a tribe and he ended up getting killed. He was like he was a Kennedy, I think, whatever. Why would they think this is a good idea? Those people, you need to leave them alone. They don't want to be part of regular society. That's their regular society. Why the hell would they think it's a good idea to do a documentary about people who eat humans?
Filmmakers losing their lives. At the premiere, people were horrified. Many couldn't sit through the whole thing. After its release in 1980, the documentary quickly was banned in over 50 countries because of its content. But here's the twist. There was something viewers didn't realize. It was a fake documentary. Everything was staged. The whole thing was actually a movie made to look like a documentary. The director even promoted it as a documentary and used a found footage style of filmmaking to make viewers feel like they were watching real events.
That's crazy. Like the Blair Witch Project?
By appropriating the techniques of the documentary world, Deodato had skillfully persuaded audiences into thinking they were watching real, uncut scenes.
When the director announced that it was all fake, it surprisingly made the situation far worse because people refused to believe that it was fake. The scenes were so realistic that viewers thought the actors who lost their lives in the film were actually killed.
The way they faked that scene and other scenes in the movie were, something that Hollywood special effects guys probably couldn't duplicate with millions of dollars.
Things got so serious that the police stepped in. The director was arrested by Italian authorities and charged with murder. Even though he tried to explain that it was just a movie, the cops didn't buy it. They planned to use the film as proof that he was guilty. And it didn't help that the director made the actors sign contracts to not go out in public for a year after the film's release, all to make it seem like it was a real documentary. To avoid a life sentence, the director Deodato had to bring the actors to court to prove that they were still alive and explained how he used special effects to fake the deaths. Wow. The actors also appeared on an Italian TV show together to prove to the entire country that they were in fact alive.
Deodato was pretty much a genius at the way he tried to fool the audience with the camera.
No, he didn't try. He did fool the audience.
Yeah, he was very clever.
Even the native tribe shown in the movie wasn't real. Many of the so-called natives were just local actors hired from nearby towns. The backstory was fake too. No filmmakers were lost in the Amazon and no rescue mission was ever launched. It was all just a stunt to get people to watch this movie. The problem was that it worked so well that Deodato almost went to prison for life.
As unpleasant as the film is and as crude as it is, you know, he does have a pretty good grip of the cinematic technique.
So why did Deodato make such a controversial film? He had a reason, though it didn't exactly make sense. He claimed he wanted to criticize how the media sensationalizes crime and violence to boost ratings.
Wait, what?
Deodato accused Italian news of showing real violent footage just for attention, and he wanted to show how wrong that was. But his explanation didn't calm people down. The violent scenes were too realistic that it remained banned in over 50 countries, even though everyone knew it was a movie.
That's crazy.
Earthlings. The Earthlings documentary had one goal: to expose the ways animals are used for food, clothing, and scientific research. But the footage isn't easy to watch. The documentary's director, Sean Monson, came up with the idea while working on a commercial about spaying and neutering pets. During that time, he stumbled upon the horrible conditions in slaughterhouses and other industries that used animals. What he saw was so disturbing that he felt like it was his duty to let the world see it. However, that was not going to be easy. The million-dollar companies running these industries wanted to keep everything quiet. If the world saw what was really going on in the factories and labs, it could destroy their business, and they weren't about to let that happen without a fight. To make Earthlings, Sean Monson used hidden cameras to gather footage from places like factory farms, research labs, and even circuses. The footage was raw and intense, but it revealed the truth. The message was that animals are living beings, not just objects, and they deserve kindness and respect. Many who watch Earthlings were inspired to change their lifestyles, opting for vegan diets or avoiding products tested on animals. Because of its graphic content, some theaters and streaming services banned Earthlings because it was just too disturbing. However,
I would say I think we should have like a balance between veggies and meat. That's the best thing we can do. Because again, if most everybody becomes vegetarian, well, veggies and fruits and all that will go down low, and then there would not be enough room, right? There would be enough food for the whole world. That's what I think. I'm probably talking out of my ass and I'm completely wrong. But no, overall, I think there should be more of a balance. I don't think we should waste food at all, especially when it comes to animals. We should not be wasting food, right? Like, best of our abilities. That's one thing that I'm surprised that no one has made a documentary of. Maybe they have, about Hollywood, one of the most wasteful places of food. I think they changed it, but like how like in Hollywood there's some like TV scenes or movie scenes where they're eating food. Well, they can't actually eat the food because they're they're saying lines to like whatever they're saying. So what they do with the food, they throw them away. What happens to the food that people don't eat in catering? They throw them away. So I know it's a little bit tangent, but I feel like, yeah, I'm surprised I have not seen a documentary about that. This should have been.
Documentary found its audience online, where people could watch it for free and share it with others. Today, Earthlings is considered one of the most popular documentaries ever made about the ethical treatment of animals. These documentaries show us just how dark the world can be. It's a reminder that 100%. Sometimes the most unsettling truths
the dark side
are the ones
of
we need
world.
to hear. Visual Venture. Wait, before you guys go, make sure you guys subscribe and then click here to watch more dark internet documentaries. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers. Let's go.
Yeah, did he hit the 1 million? Oh, it's getting close. Nice. But yeah, I think I heard some of them, but I've not watched like nearly any of these. They allowed the filmmaker to film inside a mental institution and use the patients as the cast. Yeah, as soon as he was about to showcase his documentary, they sued him for breaking the patient's privacy. Even though they allowed him to do so, like, huh? Yeah, but it has so much power. They bullshit their way. They bullshit like to stop the film. You know, people that comment sections are really another level. Like literally, they know everything after a minute or two. Comment their thoughts on it. I know this is yeah okay. They allowed the filmmaker to making a documentary filmmaker created a documentary about the collapse of the government about a tragedy. Then they tell the guy it's too disturbing. We're banning it. The government officials hit the fact that they're not prepared for everything, and luckily people were able to see it abroad. Yeah, I think that's a good thing that like showcasing like, hey, the government is not prepared for anything to happen. If sometimes if something big tragic happens, not everyone's prepared for it, you know. And I think we should become prepared for it just in case. Like, even the small things like with food and all that, especially. I probably thought the thumbnail said illegal dogs and was really concerned. Consider it's not a documentary, it's a movie claiming to be one. Yeah, but it's like it started as a documentary, like a mockumentary, I guess you could say a little bit. Um, so I think that's like the point of it. I think that's like the art, like the showcasing why that was in there, pretty much, you know.